That's interesting. So something that my co-founder Femi and I talk a lot about, and we've been kind of trying to figure out how to make this a part of our main communication. But one of the things we think with stories that can be really powerful is, for that instance, God forbid someone has to live through that experience and tell that story from a personal, I went through this.
Yeah.
The power of your thing that you made was, as a young kid, he got to see something play out with the imagination of film and the creativity of it. And it was a warning to be like, hey, this is a reality that could happen if you're not responsible. And I think of like, you know, even scripture being that in a sense, where God's kind of giving these stories of these characters to be like, what could happen if you were consumed with greed? What could happen if you're a liar? What could happen if there's all these things and it plays out and you're like, I don't want to be that guy. So for you, what do you think that looks like? Because I think you said something interesting, because I think there's a lot of conversation right now in pop culture about like the messaging of stories, and you know, there's a balance between, you don't want to be like forcing ideas down people's throats, but you also don't want to make something that's just like popcorn, you know, brainless mind stuff all the time. So what do you think are some key components to making a story in any medium that resonates deeply with the audience? Like, what have you picked up as you've been working on different things?
What I've picked up on is authenticity. Being authentic as possible, not just being trendy, not just trying to go with the flow of what everybody else is doing. Because a lot of time we can get caught up in, okay, what's going to go viral?
Yeah.
How can I go viral? What can I shoot? What can I film right now that's gonna get us 1 million views? I'm about 100% sure not everybody that goes viral know that what they're doing is going to go viral.
Sure.
It doesn't work like that. So it's and a lot of time we try to, and when I say we, you know, I'm not talking about you and I, but just the leaders in today's social media world.
Yeah.
A lot of time we try to go after what's going to hit big. And it's not really important to try to find out, okay, let me do this for the it's not about what the culture wants.
Yeah.
What do the culture need?
Yeah.
I'm not just going to do this. I'm not just doing, I'm doing this for the culture. I'm doing this for it's not just about what the culture wants. What does the culture need? So being authentic in our storytelling, it is giving a real view of not only what you're going through, because if you've gone through it, somebody else has already been through it.
Yep.
And then you're not going to be the last person to go through it.
Yeah.
So just being authentic, man, is that's the best way to go.
Yeah.
Being exactly who God created you to be.
Yeah. I love that. So I'm going to ask you to dive a little deeper. And for you, how do you define authenticity coming out in art? Because I think something I've noticed is, especially I think younger generations are in a tough spot where, you know, I had my parents and my grandparents, and I saw that my grandparents, you didn't have any idea what they were thinking or feeling.
Yeah.
My parents were a little bit better. I feel like my generation was like a little bit closer. Now I'm watching, you know, the Gen Z group that is primarily the group that I teach, and they're, I think, embracing authenticity the most. But I think they have a very reactionary definition of what authenticity is. Like, authenticity is exactly what I'm feeling, and whatever I'm feeling is the real me. Yeah. Whereas I wonder what you think of the idea of authenticity being like, this is me in the deepest self-reflection and trying to almost like speak truth to myself and then share what I've learned about myself to others as truthfully as possible, sifting through me not being...
Yes, sir.
Like, I almost can't trust myself, so I had to spend some time kind of like going to task, being like, man, do I like... is this really me? Is this not me? Is this from growing up? Is this from a school experience? Is it? And then you kind of get to a point where you're like, no, I know what the real me is. I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to tell you the journey of like how to get there.
That's a great question, man. What I believe. So let me kind of rephrase to make sure I understand what your question is.
Love it. Go for it.
So you're asking, how do I define, or how can I help others realize what authenticity is?
Sure. I love that. Yeah.
So I'm going to give two different examples about real situations that I had to learn.
Sure.
To myself, okay, this is authentic coming from me. In the medium of film, so I have to blend mediums. So I'm a recording artist as well. So I record Christian inspirational gospel music. That's what I do. Now that I realize who I am and the music that I create. Mm-hmm. It took a long time for me to realize what is my story. What is my story as a recorder? I grew up in church. I'm the son of a bishop, first lady. I've known church my entire life, but I rap and I sing. So from what I know of quote unquote hip hop or rap music, it's very braggadocious. It's very, is very arrogant. You know what I'm saying? Somewhat of, so I'm trying to figure out, okay, I rap, I sing, but I'm not braggadocious like that. I'm not trying to be bragging. I'm not trying to, tear anybody down. So how can I tell my story? I don't really have a story. I haven't been through the fire. I haven't sold drugs. I haven't shot anybody. What story? I don't have anything interesting to say. Who's going to listen to my music? Yeah. That's what I thought for years. Sure. I was like, okay, I could talk about God. That's it. That's all I need to talk about is just Jesus, Jesus, God. But they still want to hear my story. Where did I come from? Why am I here? What can I rap about that influence people to say, yo, this kid got a story? And it wasn't until recently I figured out what it was. I'm like, yo, there's an audience for people that's like me, that grew up in the hood. I grew up in the hood, but I didn't grow up in the streets. So I'm like, okay, my story is God took a kid like me that could barely read, could barely write, barely graduated high school, working at McDonald's, to owning his own company, to training kids worldwide how to use a skill that they can feed their families for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Amen. That's awesome.
And now I'm doing commercials. I got clients that are writing me checks. Microsoft, Blue Cross Blue Shield, on big movie sets. Some of the famous comedians and actors people watch on TV. I'm shaking hands with them. I'm working with them backstage all the time. That's my story. Oh man, I gotta tell that. So that is a form of me being original. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm literally rapping. I'm making songs about how 4 years ago I didn't own a camera. Yeah. Yeah. To now I own 6 and running a company. And you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, this is my story. Yeah. This is what I can talk about. March is reading month. Yeah. Every year for 12 years, I was scared to read in class because I couldn't. Yeah. But now I'm reading scripts on radio stations and commercials and TV and film. I'm doing voiceovers. So it's like, yo, that's my story. Let me rap about that. That's cool. Yeah. So that's one medium. Yeah. That's one form of me being original. Yeah. So
no, I love that. So I had a question kicking around the back of my head and I was like, oh, this is perfect. So you mentioned like telling stories in church, and you mentioned a little bit ago that with social media, the tendency now is let's tell stories or let's make content, let's do things that are going to get as much attention as possible. And that's what drives what we're choosing to make. Do you think that we have a similar problem in church culture about the stories that we tell and the kinds of things that we hold up? Like, are there certain stories that we think are like, oh, this is the, like, everybody needs to hear this story, but then there's other stories that are maybe equally as beautiful, maybe not as flashy, but there's still a person, there's still a conflict, there's still something they had to overcome, and God helped them overcome it.
Absolutely. I think that I would love to see more. I would love to see more biblical stories.
Yeah.
With a modern day twist to it. You know what I mean? Should I say this? Okay.
Go for it. No, the rule is you gotta, if we're being authentic,
it's cool.
Right? Go for it.
Okay.
Go for it, man.
Man, listen. I worked on a movie, I want to say 3-4 years ago. It was a modern day story of King David. You know what I mean? Movie never came out for different reasons. The production team, the producer, for whatever reason, the movie didn't come out. I would love to see more stories of, Samson, modern day stories of those real stories. The movies that I definitely want to give a shout out, man, to, who is that? Like, there's movies on Pure Flix that I enjoy watching. What is that? Courageous, War Room.
Sure.
What movie is that? Overcomers. The Kendrick brothers.
Sure.
They tell great stories. However, I would love to see more of real life experiences. More real life experiences of what we go through on a daily basis as believers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when it comes to the faith-based movies, I enjoy them. But I would like to see more of real world experiences.
Yeah.
Because there's things that believers deal with that might seem like taboo. We might not talk about or might be uncomfortable to talk about. So, I think to a certain extent, there's certain things as faith-based films that we won't show because it's like, that might be too much. No, it might not be too much. Somebody in church is dealing with this right now. So it's bigger than just divorce. It's because we see certain things that are starting to get repetitive in the faith-based film community. Divorce, that's that is a big one. But there are other things, man, that parents deal with their kids that we're not showing yet. There's certain things when it comes to it's just so many different topics and so many different ways to go. When it comes to being creative. And I think with where we are now, I think we have a great advantage, man. As independent filmmakers to take advantage of the time we're in, and make some stuff shake, make some stuff happen.
Love it.